So Sean, what is marginal, whatever you called it?
Marginal costs.
Oh.
Well, Tom, the reason marginal costs are so important is in decision making when you're making a budget. Quite often the direct marketer will measure the wrong thing. So I'll give you a really good example. Let's say that I'm doing a warm mailing. So I've gone and done my research, I've got my case study, I've got my really strong proposition, and I've built this whole really gorgeous pack that I'm going to mail out to my donors. So I'm ready to mail this out. Let's say I'm mailing to 50,000 donors. But I also want to be producing some acquisition packs because we just don't have anything that we're using to cold donors. Now we know that generally speaking there needs to be some difference in creative in sort of how we write, maybe something different in the lift, maybe the use of a premium or something. But let's just, for example, just to illustrate marginal costs, say I'm going to use more or less the same letter with just a few words changed and maybe one extra printed piece. So let's say that the cost to mail these 50,000 people is, I'm just going to use round numbers, is $50,000. So I'm going to spend $50,000 on mailing my warm donors. So that's $1 per person. And I will measure everything on $1 per person, blah, blah, blah. But let's say I decide to mail another 50,000 cold bought lists or whatever. I get these lists, or I borrow some lists, or I swap some lists, but I get 50,000 names of prospects who've never donated to my charity. So now I've got 100,000 people. But we know that when you print things and when you start mailing volumes, that the prices don't double when you do double volume, because you get economies of scale. So let's say the total cost to mail these 100,000 people is now $80,000. So the natural assumption for the fundraiser is to go, well, now I'll assess my cold and my warm packages at 40 grand each. So I will assess if this was successful by measuring the half of the cost, which was $80,000, and I say, well, this one, I mailed my 50,000 warm donors at a cost of $40,000, and here's my measures. And I'll do the same measure over here. I'll say, well, I sent these 50,000 cold prospects at a cost of $40,000. Where that's incorrect is when I come down to it, assuming that there weren't many great costs in doing this pack, I was going to spend 50 grand on this lot anyway. So really, when I'm assessing whether this was successful in acquiring new donors at some cost, I should be measuring this group at a cost of $30,000. So effectively, I got a cheaper pack out for these people. I made a marginal saving. And that saving of $10,000, which is effectively 25% of the total cost, could be the difference between this pack failing and succeeding. Now, of course, when I roll out, I need to take into consideration that I had gained those marginal savings. But it's still important that when I measure it, and even when I'm assessing the viability for rolling out, I really understand what it actually really did cost me to send that additional mailing.
Thank you, Sean. That's perfectly clear.